Jim Nill, GM of the Year the last 2 years. This morning was announced he's a finalist again. Without the moves he made, would you be sitting here?
No, I think that's pretty clear. And you know what, that goes for my entire time here. I got here 3 years ago, and I think every year, we've been in a spot at the deadline where he's, gone out and traded assets to give us a chance to win. And, I think, it's not easy to do that from the GM chair, especially, with Jim's background. I mean, his background is scouting and developing and young players. And so, I give him all the credit in the world for taking the swings he's taken, over the last 3 years that I've been here.
Right side, fifth row, Corey.
Pete, the comeback gets all the headlines in game one, but it kind of goes to waste if you don't shut them down defensively in the third period too. What did you like about that side of the game in game one, and how are you going to take that into game two for the start?
Yeah, definitely more of a blueprint for how we want to play than the first 40 minutes. And you're right, we got the goals, but we also had a huge kill in the third, and our 5-on-5 game was a lot more solid in the third period. So, I'm sure like they're looking at the first 40 minutes and going, we want to replicate that. We're looking at the last 20 and saying we've got to do more of that than 20 minutes because even the way we drew the penalties 5-on-5, attacking offensive seams, some things like that. So that's more of what we need to do tonight.
Left side, fifth row, Ryan.
Pete, can you just discuss the sort of tactical battle when it comes to special teams in a playoff series, maybe versus the regular season where you're just playing one team on one night, and how through the course of a series it's back and forth and trying to anticipate changes, and how much deeper the tactical battle is?
Yeah, for sure there's a tactical battle there, 5-on-5 and special teams, but I think, the key to coaching in the playoffs for me is to find that line where you're not overcoaching, you're not making changes just to change. A lot of, especially special teams, are confidence. It's hopping over the boards, having that feeling that you can get that kill or score that power play goal. And when you lose that, it's a lot of times you have to fight the urge as coaches to overcoach those situations.
Right side, second row, Robert.
Wyatt Johnston has been really good in these playoffs in a defensive role, especially the first round against Colorado. Started last game on a line with Duchesne and then ended centering his own line. How do you view him at center or wing or on one line or another? What does he bring, and what are you looking to get out of him?
Yeah. You know what? I think Wyatt, like the rest of our forward group, has had an up and down kind of playoff. I think the one thing about Wyatt that you can count on is the bigger the game, you can always count on him being there, and that's been the case even in this playoffs, Game 7 against Colorado. I think we've got a group of forwards that's still fighting to find their elite level. I think the opponents we played have had something to do with that also. The fact that we were playing shorthanded for most of this playoffs, other than the last 3 games of the last round and the game 1 the other night. So, he's the last guy, or one of the last guys on my list that I'm worried about, whether he's going to be here and make an impact on this series and help us trying to move and go forward here.
Left side, second row, Mike.
Hey, Pete. How much do you guys work on 5-on-6, and how important is Essa in that? Obviously, being able to score from 140, 80 feet, whatever.
Yeah, he's that's his shot. It's funny. He as soon as it was on his stick, I knew it was going in. I mean, I'm not sure he can hit the net all the time from 10 feet, but from 150, he's lights out. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable confidence that he has. In that situation. And he's done it over and over in my time here. We work on 5-on-6. I think put a little extra emphasis on it that the night we lost to Nashville, was it here when we gave up the record-setting, what was it, 4 goals in the last 5 minutes or something like that. So I've always felt a confidence in our group in those situations until late in the season this year, and you know, we got burned a couple games there, and we've dialed in the detail after that.
We'll take a couple more. Left side, fourth row, Mark.
Pete, you have an interesting lineup structure. You got like kind of this veteran core of Sagan, Ben, Duchesne, and then you got like kind of guys in their prime, Rantanen, Hintz, Robertson, Heiskanen. And then you got young guys like Johnston and Harley. Is it cliquish in the room at all? Where does the leadership come from in that regard? How do those three kind of generations interact?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you know what, there's great interaction in our room. You know, I wouldn't say they're not 22 guys moving around as one. You know, we go on the road, there's not 22 guys at dinner. It's not that type of team. You know, the Finns do their thing. You know, and there's always groups, you know, of guys that kind of hang out together. But I think the one common denominator is our leadership and our veteran guys, Tyler Sagan, Jamie Benn. You know, that group of guys is really inclusive, you know, when it matters, I guess, is probably the most important part. And if you know those two guys, their personalities are really approachable, they're really humble. There's no entitlement in their leadership. You know, it's really you know, on a peer-to-peer level. They have a great way of communicating that way, as opposed to, you know, talking down to younger guys or you know, some of those other groups. So yeah, it's a great dressing room. And you know what, I've talked about this guy before, but you know, I always have to mention Joe Pavelski in those two. He's got a huge impact on how our room is.
Last one, left side, first row.
Pete, I'm assuming when you were growing up in Canada, you didn't think of Texas and Florida as being places where great hockey was going to be played, but you've had experience in both markets. Now, can you talk about what you've seen in the development of hockey in the South? Not only just professional teams that are good, but the development of young players.
Yeah. Well, crazy. I mean, you know, my first job was in Florida, and at that time, Tampa and the Panthers were really in tough spots. I mean, those buildings were empty. You know, there was rumblings of those teams moving. Atlanta was still in the league at that point. You know, there was a real struggle in those markets. So you know, to see, you know, where they're at now is really impressive. And Dallas for me is a perfect example of coming into a place and you know, getting a foothold at the grassroots level. I mean, the amount of rinks and ice surfaces and facilities and kids playing minor hockey here in Dallas, you know, is way bigger than I ever anticipated. And when you talk to people around here, it's all based on that '99 Cup team. You know, they won. You know, they captured the city's attention, and you know, all this stuff got done. The rinks got built. You know, I think Florida, you know, didn't get that done early. But it's doing it now, and they're going to reap the benefits of that. You know, I think when you get a team that wins in a non-traditional market, you know, I think the benefits roll out for decades.